Hey, so you know how in the Metal Saga, who got chosen based on the legendary bladers is a hot topic debate? Like, weren't there too many new characters? I mean, not really. You're more likely to sell a new Beyblade based on if it's paired with a new character, because marketing kind of shows that if you pair it with an old character, they're less likely to buy it unless it feels like an evolution or a suited upgrade. And the toy line didn't necessarily give anyone from the past two seasons an upgrade besides Gingka, Kyoya, Ryuga, Kenta, and Masamune. Heck, in the manga, we didn't even see Masamune or Kenta with them because they probably got announced before Adachi-san had time to put them in. Personally, if we had 51 full-fledged 22-minute long episodes and more time to flesh out the legendary bladers, I think it wouldn't have been so controversial, especially if there was more time to do more with the rest of the supporting cast. Like, even the people from Season 2 played a role in the story, didn't they? But like most of them, being new protagonists was so lame. I have a completely original take I have never heard anyone say. Let's make all of the new bladers old bladers instead. Instead of Yuki owning Mercury and Nubius, it should be Nile because he has hype and aura and is Egyptian, like Anubius. Instead of Tiffy, it should be Yu since we know Yu more. And since they were found in the desert, Yu also uses sand and desert-based attacks. Instead of King, we should have had Julian because Perseus and Ares are both night metal avatars who can shift modes. Instead of Dynamis, we should have had Tsubasa because we know Tsubasa and like him, he came first. And Zeus is actually connected to Aquila. Instead of Aguma, we should have had the Shine because he came first. And thus Balin hits. That's what it's called, right? And instead of Chris, it should have been Masamune because we conveniently forget that we shit on Masamune for losing for either narrative or logical reasons, yet people on his platform can never actually remember his wins oddly conveniently, right? There's just a few problems with that logic, my friend. Why are you always defending bad writing? I can't tell if you hate the Metal Saga or not. I mean, I like the Metal Saga. Heck, even when I criticized it, I ended up defending it most of the time in the same video. I would actually like more expansion on the Nemesis Bladers actually being dark variants of fallen members of the legendary Bladers, or extend the number of legendary Bladers since I'd be down with Hikaru, Masamune, Sora, even Damien being legends, alongside the fact that we didn't have Uranus or Neptune for some reason. But if we're talking about replacing them, isn't there one elephant in the room that we're ignoring? And that is... well, most of the recommendations, Nile, Yu, Julian, Tsubasa, the Cheyenne, and Masamune, even choices like Damien, they're all good guys or reformed anti-villains, or in Damien's case, made up with Jinga in the manga. Ignoring the fact that every legendary blader has a role to play, like how Yuki had to unite the bladers while Dynamis was the one to guide them on the rest of the lore, there's no reason for any of those bladers to fight each other. At most, everyone save for Ryuga would be on the same side, the heroes would battle them once or twice, they'd figure out they're all legendary bladers, and none of these replacement characters are stupid enough or have a reason to backtrack on their character development. After all, Tsubasa, Yu, Julian, and the Shine completed their character development in arcs, and as much as I hate to say it, Nile is a little bit of an overrated character who is a consistent blader and strategist, but really doesn't have any personal room for growth unless we give him a backstory that just should have been there in his debut episode, with most of his popularity coming from the power scaling side and those who felt that he was good enough to humble Masamune. But can't we just brainwash them like they did with Dynamis? Well, that's also kind of a problem. See, the thing with brainwashing is, while it's an effective tool to get characters to fight each other or join the villains, there's usually a few problems with that narratively. The first problem is that when a character is brainwashed, you really have to bring out their personality since brainwashing tends to rob them of their agency. In the case of Dynamis, it's cool lore-wise, but for a character people think should have had more focus, you're essentially losing out on time to understand and explore the character's national traits. At least with something like the arrangement system, the characters, save for Faust, are themselves. Damien was groomed into joining, Jack is still an artist outside of the arrangement, and Zio was always driven to succeed. It artificially drew out their power, but it was still their power, and it was them at least having their own driving reasons for the stories. It's sort of the reason why almost every female Yu-Gi-Oh lead girl besides Roman gets criticized for being brainwashed, because their role in the story is being dictated by someone else. And in situations where they're brainwashed for so long, they're kept out of the story. A la how Alexa spent 40% of Season 2 in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX being brainwashed, and the moment traces of her original personality start to come back, she gets brainwashed even further and has to be saved by Jaden, and she doesn't even get a chance to duel any other character she could have had a strong repertoire with, or did have a strong repertoire with. Or how in Arc 5, Yuzu and the Bracelet Girl spend half of their time in the final season brainwashed, then put into a cage and then deleted to revive Rei Spirit, and only Yuzu getting her body back when it should have just been a simple fix to have all the girls' bodies back. Then in Reigns with Aoi, because the duels were so long, the lead girl is brainwashed and in comatose for the first part of the introductory arc for 6 episodes. With Zexel, it wasn't often, but because Tori wasn't a duelist, it made more people angry about the lead girl just being emotional support or a tool in order to motivate the character. And with Taya and Duel Monsters, her getting brainwashed at least happened more than once, which also led her to be disliked or not having that much of a plotline in general. The reason people weren't as mad as when it happened with Akiza and 5Ds is because it was temporarily caused by the person who manipulated her, and it also led her to break free and give her some development with Yusei. And the reason people weren't too mad about it happening in Go Rush is because that was a faster paced show that could cut down the brainwashing plotline easier, allowed for a great moment for one of the supporting female characters once they were freed from brainwashing, and by season 3, the main female lead actually got to do more in the story. It was controversial, but that's still more agency than what most of these ladies had to offer. Well, what's your point? My point is that the Legendary Bladers plotline was interesting in Metal Fury because while a Chosen One story can be boring and seen as a negative because it's ultimately destiny being decided, it's ultimately up to how the story is executed and how much the story has the protagonist's actions ultimately be their own choices, with the destiny part ending up having the protagonist try to question or make decisions for themselves based on how they interpret their destiny. Because every Blader who was involved in Season 3 wasn't either necessarily aware of the legends or behind the story or had their own baggage about either their lives or Beyblades when they were chosen or found out about why this is such a big deal. That makes every character involved stand out more, and they see the justification on why everyone isn't necessarily united in the first place. For example, we've seen Jinga try to embrace and defy fate given his relationship with Ryuga in the past, so we know he's going to try to fight against Nemesis and help out. With Kyoya, he's always done whatever he wants and tends to lead others, and mostly doesn't like when other people are being manipulated. But now that he's forced to be in a group of people that should be on his level of strength, aka being equals, is he going to be harsher to weaker Bladers, try to surpass stronger Bladers out of pride, or stand out from Jinga and try to find the other legendary Bladers, something Aguma was trying to tempt him about? Then you have Ryuga, who wants to get stronger naturally and stop Nemesis, but Ryuga's always been self-interested. So would he help out the heroes because he doesn't have a choice, or try to do it himself through any means, even if it means harming his allies or just making it harder for allies to actually do their job? Then there's Yuki. His grandfather came from Koma Village, but he doesn't have any confidence, but he's being hunted down by the same people trying to recruit him to join Nemesis, so why should he join them? And if he thinks or knows that the child of someone else's grandfather's village is the number one blader in the world, then, well, just join them and train under him to get stronger. What about King? He grew up in a small town in Greece and was resented because he was too strong. Would he join up with Nemesis and also prove his strength by destroying the people who alienated him? Be tempted to work with someone who would appreciate his strength? Or would he find someone who valued his strength and wanting to find friends who appreciated his strength and get him to help out? Or take Dynamis. For my Kamen Rider fans, they know that one of the main antagonists in Saber was the guy whose predecessor was the founder of the organization, meant to protect everyone, but that said predecessor got bored and decided it'd be much more fun to destroy the world. Dynamis, you could argue, was following fate, but he also made the choice to follow said fate and try to stop Nemesis, to the point where his agency had to be taken from him to make his powers a threat to the heroes for a change. In fact, let's talk about Aguma. Not necessarily an evil person, but he was born into a weird position since his ancestor was a hero, but one of them joined the Balin Fist, who tried to succeed and take control of the Balin Temple and were subsequently exiled, passing their lineage of hate down to Aguma and those who followed him. So of course he'd want to side with whatever group promised him and Balin Fist the opportunity to prove themselves the strongest, or would value their strength and a world where their group would be seen as heroes and not traitors of Chinese Beyblade society. Or, if he found out the truth about his legacy, would be swayed into fighting for the world. Then there's Chris, who I know people like him being a military guy more because it's cooler. Well, he was abandoned on the world stage in front of everyone, which for the most popular competitive sport would be pretty messed up to have all your friends abandon you on what could be the biggest moments of your life. So if you feel like no one is genuine because of that, why not sell your services, since at least they'd have a reason to keep you around? Which is why it's so easy for him to fall for Johannes' lies, since they genuinely need to revive Nemesis. And if he doesn't trust people, he wouldn't necessarily go with the heroes because they're asking him to trust him, and in that moment, he only believes being used as being better than falling for something that could be a lie. Then there's Tiffy, who's just lonely. Whoever found him was probably going to be the one to sway him to join either side, and everyone should be really lucky that you found him first. The point is that all of these guys have a reason to be good or evil, and if it was just a character from season 1 and 2, because all of them are associated with the Dark Nebula and Hades Inc., having some ties to the Dark Power, and by extension Nemesis, they either have no doubts or reason to join the villains unless they're brainwashed, and if they're brainwashed, people just complain that they don't have any agency. Don't get me wrong, it's a fun discussion at the end of the day, but when some of the discourse ends up resulting in people saying that the writing is bad and it was stupid and it's just exclusively hating on the new characters for not being the old characters, without realizing that if there weren't any new characters whose positions and reasons for wanting to side for either one to be more malleable, then the question I have for those people would be, if everyone who was a legendary blader was on the same side from season 1 and 2, what would be the conflict until Rago showed up? Johannes and the Nemesis Bladers, who would obviously show up late because of the toy release schedule? So what? We should have valid criticisms about how to make the new characters who are legendary bladers more fleshed out, and the villains, while also trying to keep a way to make sure the supporting characters from season 1 and 2 are active even if they aren't legendary bladers? Well, yeah. Don't forget, Yu, Tsubasa, and Masamune destroyed Nemesis' barrier after all. Nah, all the new legendary bladers are trash. Can we agree on one thing? What? There should be a girl who was a legendary blader, like how Titi was gonna be, or Hikaru. Agreed.